Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, a special event featuring only podcast host with thick eyebrows. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about the news from the week, including Nintendo's financial call, and then on Thursday, we are going to use the Super Mash formula to jam together some Nintendo franchises. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing so good. I don't want to jump the gun here, so let me just say I have some interesting Animal Crossing news to share with you when we get there.
Right. Okay, good. I look forward to hearing your interesting Animal Crossing news. R.I.P. Huck, I'm sure. Yeah, I guess I will. Here's a question I have for you, Mark. Have you heard the new Weezer song?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Van Weezer, their new record was going to come out this month, but it has been delayed indefinitely. But they put out a new single called "Hero," and it's actually pretty good.
Oh, okay, like pretty good. I've got to tell you, Patrick, I feel like not from you necessarily, but I hear this almost every time record or Weezer puts a record out or a new song out, where you're like, where the world seems to be like, on the sliding scale of Weezer songs, this one is fine. And I don't know how to interpret this anymore, because I then listen to the songs and it's like, that is fine, and then never listen to it ever again.
So I am a big fan of Everything Will Be All Right in the End. I like that record a lot, and I like the White Album a lot, but have not cared for anything they've put out since. And this is, I feel like, a higher quality than anything they put out in, the like 3 or 4 years since the White Album.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my point is, check it out, and you might like it or you might hate it. Speaking of things that you can check out and either like or hate, my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch. Would you like to borrow it? You can someday. What you want to do now is just get on the list to eventually someday get this thing sent to you in the mail. All you gotta do is email us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com with a mailing address where I can send it to you. Again, this is when I feel like actually going to the post office and looking other human beings in the eye as we try to communicate with our masks on. Get on the list. I'll send it to you eventually.
I mean, yeah, the nice thing about the way you're describing this, Patrick, is that it's an out for you to never do this ever again.
Absolutely.
Because really, when are we in the mood to go to the post office and deal with other people?
I mean, never. When am I ever in the mood to deal with other people? Like, period. But there are some times when I suck it up and do it anyway.
And if you're gonna do that, the Sonic Forces borrowing program is a reason to continue on. It's like The Postman in that Kevin Costner movie I've never seen.
The Postman?
Yes.
Or Waterworld? Which one?
I've seen Waterworld.
And then thanks to everyone who's been adding us as friends on the Switch. Our friend codes are in the description of every episode. So please add us, and we'll be happy to accept those requests. And then you can see what we're doing in Animal Crossing. We can see what you're doing in Animal Crossing and not in Animal Crossing. All right. One last thing. I still just do want to plug 8-Bit Betty put out a new single a couple weeks ago. It's a cover of Prince's Nothing Compares to You. 8-Bit Betty is our house band. He is responsible for the music that happens at the beginning and end of all these episodes. And it's a great recording, so go check it out. All right. Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. I know I've got something on the list before Animal Crossing, but I need to know your Animal Crossing news.
Okay, all right. So Um, First of all, I got KK Slider to come to my island. Turns out it's way easier to get 3 stars than
Mm.
I thought it was. I guess I just hadn't checked in a while, but and maybe the tipping point was I did your plan. I built a nice brick fence and then put some park equipment in there. And
Yeah.
maybe that was the thing that tipped me over to 3 stars. But so I got KK Slider to come to my island, and then the weirdest thing happened in that I lost all enthusiasm for Hogwarts, for my
Oh
island.
no.
Yeah, I didn't it was no longer bringing me any happiness. I would
Mm.
log in and I'd be like, "Well, I don't like the way it looks. I don't particularly like any of my I like my villagers, but I'm sick of them." And I want to make significant changes, but to do that's going to cost me hundreds of thousands of bells. So
Right.
it's I hadn't developed it particularly nice or cool anyways. So I was like, whatever. Hogwarts dead. I erased it. But here's the sad thing that happened is I started over and I was so I'm okay, I'm going to start a new island. I kind of have a better idea of what I want to do from the outset, where to place things. So I go through the process. I get on the island. I have 2 new islanders. It's a goat and a deer, and I just kind of felt exhausted by the whole thing. And so I haven't really gone back. I
Wow.
realized that I put and I guess at this point I intend to go back and really restart an island and do things different this time. But I also realized that I put more than 50 hours into the game, which is a lot of time. It's more the time that I spent with Fire Emblem Three Houses. And
Yeah.
so also I'm kind of maybe I am done with this right now. Maybe I'm happy with my Animal Crossing experience.
Yeah, and I think that is an okay everyone went really hard, really heavy on Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I I think it is totally okay to have gotten to a point now. The game's been out for over a month, right? And that it was sort of daily appointment play for a long time. If you've got over 50 hours in it, that's a lot of time with a video game. Um, I've got over 100 hours on mine now, which is something I realized today. And again, some of that I know is just I put the controller down and I'm checking Twitter for an hour or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it is uh, okay to let it go at some point. But you think this is not you letting it go?
I don't know. I tell myself that it's not, but then again when I tried to get back into it, I didn't really have any enthusiasm for it.
Ooh, getting back into it sounds tough.
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a Breath of the Wild situation where I try to restart it and I'm "Oh, maybe this is too fresh." Or maybe I just need, I don't know. Not look, Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing are 2 very different games, but
Correct.
after I opened up the entire map in Breath of the Wild and climbed all the towers and had seen the breadth of everything, I
Hmm.
the game was still fun, but it didn't have the same sense of discovery. And I kind of felt that a little bit that way after I hit KK Slider, where I was started to move stuff on my island and started to paint the ground and everything, and it just I don't know, it didn't do it the same way that it used to for me.
Yeah, I mean, it is very weird how you reach a point where there is no more external reward. You get higher star ratings, but also I don't know. I think you got to really deck a place out to get a 5-star rating, in a way that I would not find aesthetically pleasing. I've been locked at 3 stars for a couple weeks, and I don't want to add any more stuff to the outdoor parts of my island. I don't want to just keep throwing up decorations for the sake of throwing up decorations. Um, we do have 2 emails that I wanted to just bring up quickly. One from Colin, who wrote last week, and this is sort of a follow up. He was asking how to get 3 stars. And he says, I did it. I got 3 stars on my island. Thanks. So, Mark, if you still have 2 stars in your island, ha! He says, thanks for the advice, guys. So Colin, congratulations. I hope it didn't ruin Animal Crossing for you as it did for Mark. And then we also got an email from Ian. Ian says, "Hey, Patrick and Mark, how are you? I'm doing fine. Great. Just started listening to the podcast and I really love it. My question is, what is the fastest way to get bells in Animal Crossing New Horizons? Bye for now." So Mark, what methods did you use to, I mean, I know you said peace out before you needed to like get a ton of bells to start like moving stuff around. But what were your methods for getting bells?
So one of the things I would do every day is like plant the money tree.
Mm-hmm.
But like, and that is great at the beginning of the game. Like the more you get into it, the less helpful it is. Like you kind of might as well do it because it's like, you know, 30,000 bells after you plant. And so if you plant 10,000, then you're guaranteed to get 30,000. One of the mistakes
Yeah.
I made is that I thought like that was true no matter what. So I would plant 99,000 bells uh and then pick it up and it would only be 30,000. And I was like, and I couldn't remember, like, maybe I forgot where I planted the 99,000 one. And this was just the 30, this was just like 10,000 or some number. But while it is true that you can plant 99,999 bells, and occasionally you will get 300 bells, 300,000 bells back, most of the time it is just like a max of 30,000 bells. And then, of course, the other thing that people are using to just like destroy the economy of the game is taking advantage of the stock market, the
Yeah.
buying turnips and then finding somebody usually online whose island is selling turnips that day for like way more than you bought it, and then just like going to that island and maxing out.
Yeah, so that's that I have done this exactly one time, and it was because former guest Christian Humes hit me up with someone's dodo code. There's just like, hey, someone on our Discord has like turnips at 600 bells a turnip, and luckily I had purchased a bunch of them before, so that's how I. But really, like, I didn't have that many, because like I'm always paying off like the debts. I'm always buying stuff. I'm always building bridges and stuff like that. So when Sunday rolls around and Daisy May is there selling turnips, I don't always have the money to do it. Um, so like this last week, I had purchased a fair amount of turnips and never found a good price on them, and sold them at a huge loss on Saturday afternoon. Like I think I bought them for about 100 and sold them for like 57, and was like, well, that's it. I messed up. Um, and I left one a single turnip, which is actually 10 turnips, on the ground to rot, so that I would get ants. So I could catch some ants and donate those to the museum.
Oh, whoa. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that.
But so I mean I think that's the best way to just get like a ton of money. I know other people will also do like tarantulas, and then wait until Flick shows up and sell them to Flick for double money. I know we're out of tarantula season now, so and I don't really know how the scorpion economy works. I assume it is similar, but yeah, I don't really know. I feel like I struggle with having enough bells. I haven't. I just now, or just today, um, paid off the third room on my house. So now they're building a second floor, which should be ready tomorrow.
Oh, cool. That is cool.
Yeah. Um, is it time for us to move off of Animal Crossing? I'm not saying as a game that we play, but as a point of discussion for today's episode.
Yes, I think that's fair.
I spent some time this weekend with Sarah playing Super Mario Party, which was something that she suggested because she was like, I want to play a Mario game. And we were talking through the various Mario games that we could play. Turns out there's a ton of them, but they're all like, there was a second where we might have played Super Mario 3D World again. I think she and I have played that game together 3 or 4 times all the way through. And so we didn't do that. We played Super Mario Party, which was actually a lot of fun. I still wish that the game, like when you actually played the boards, that it was faster. Like it really relishes in like every single turn takes so long. And like when someone gets a star, you like it goes to this like separate screen where you can see all four players and their star and coin counts, and then the star count goes up one for that one player. Like you see it go from 0 to 1, and then all the characters react to it, and then the character who just got the star moves either up or down depending on like whether, well, up probably. um and then like that screen goes away, and then it says Rosalina has taken the lead. Like all of these are like separate point. Like it takes so long for anything to happen in that game. And I just wish there was like a pro mode or something where it's just like, yeah, I get it. Like, or like as you're passing by the item shop and you don't have enough coins, like the items shop like swoops down and says like, oh, you don't have enough coins, I'm not gonna. And it's like 2 lines of dialogue you gotta like jam A through, and then or like in the final round when they're not selling items anymore, they still swoop down and say, oh, we're not selling items right now. We're just like, come on. But while we were playing in the like the rhythm mode. There's like a music section which is super great. And I had the left Joy-Con, which my left Joy-Con has been experiencing Joy-Con drift for a long time. And I just play through it. But usually I use my Pro Controller, so it's not that big of a deal. And so while we were playing, Sarah, we get a message about the right Joy-Con, saying like, player 2, your swings are too big. So like it was a baseball mini game in this rhythm thing. So suddenly it was reading her swings is too big. And then after that, the accelerometer wouldn't read at all.
Oh, weird.
So now the motion controls on the right Joy-Con are inoperable. I updated the firmware on it, reconnected, disconnected, all that stuff. And my left Joy-Con is drifting. So my Joy-Cons are non-functioning. I have a non-functioning set of Joy-Con basically.
Yeah, that's annoying. That is your first pair, is that right? The ones that came with the Switch?
This is a great point. These are my launch Joy-Con, yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it feels like they should still be functioning at this point, but like my launch Joy-Con also like went away like 2 years ago at this point. I had them for about a year, and then the batteries just completely died. Like could not get a charge, nothing. So I ended up getting like the neon pink and neon green ones, which have held up pretty well, although I have found that I have to like charge them but not leave them on the Switch. Like like in the dock, it's like put them on there, charge it for a little bit, but then remove them, because if they're on there too long, it seems like it like just like starts draining them. I don't know. It's super weird.
Yeah, I mean that's weird, and it's not outside of conversations with you. It's not something that I've heard of happening to Joy-Cons. Just like I've not heard of them of like the accelerometers just not working anymore. And the thing that's a real bummer about this to me is that obviously Nintendo has their service shut down right now, so that like normally you'd be able to call in and get your Joy-Cons replaced or fixed. And I know that they are fixing for Joy-Con drift, even for Joy-Con that are outside of warranty. But I wonder if they would fix my right Joy-Con too.
Yeah. I don't know.
So that's not an option. And then the other option, which is buy a new set of Joy-Con, is also not really possible because the supply of them is so low right now, because the Switch is so popular, likely due to Animal Crossing, that like Joy-Con are only available from secondhand sellers, just like Switches are, and just like Ring Fit Adventure is. And I understand that we are in a state of global pandemic, and availability on all things is low and bad and hard. But like it is very frustrating to me that like I can't I can't get Nintendo to fix the problem. I can't fix the problem. And we just had to stop playing Super Mario Party over the weekend, and then like if we want to play Mario Kart together. Like we've only got the one controller, the Pro controller. Um, so yeah, I mean the whole thing is just like it's got me frustrated.
Yeah, that's nuts. I didn't even think about the like Joy-Con shortages. It's one of those things I've just taken for granted. Just assumed that they would always be there.
Yeah, and I mean, luckily they haven't gone to like astronomically stupid prices like the Ring Fit Adventure, but it's still like most sellers are charging about $100 for a pair, which is not great.
And then so just real fast, have been playing a little bit of new Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. Um, like Sarah, I was in the mood after Animal Crossing to play like a Mario game and was doing a little Goldilocks, trying to find one that was like
Mhm.
felt right to me. And so I played a little like bit of Super Mario Brothers 3 and was like, for whatever reason, I'm not really feeling this. So landed on New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe because it is probably one of the Mario games that I have by far played the least. And I'm enjoying it. Like I'm doing a little bit at a time, just here or there, like a level or two.
Yeah.
And trying to get like 3 coins in each one. Like I'm enjoying it. It's a Mario game, like, and so even one that maybe isn't my favorite Mario game ever is still like fun to play through.
Yeah. Well, and those the new Super Mario Brothers games are such a like it's such a known quantity, right? Where you're like, I'm gonna run around, I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna pull off a triple jump, I'm gonna collect some coins. It's not gonna be difficult unless I make it difficult. Um, yeah, the new Super Mario, or yes, new Super Mario Brothers U was also on our list of possible games to play. Because I've got it on the Wii U, but not on the 3D. No, whatever you're talking about, the Switch. All right, well, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So today, Tuesday, May 12th, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was supposed to come out, and I was really excited for this.
Yeah, me too.
But just yesterday, Aspire, the company who is publishing or developing the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer port, posted on Twitter that the game will be further delayed and that they have no updated release date.
Which is a a weird bummer, and maybe just something we got to get used to. Is as we are like deep into work from home and all that stuff, that like I think we're gonna start to see. I mean, obviously, like events and stuff like that have been delayed, but I think just individual games that are supposed to be coming out like anywhere this summer, are subject to be delayed for a million dumb reasons that are all part of COVID-19.
Right. Yeah, like you mentioned, this past week we also learned that like Tokyo Game Show, which is scheduled to happen at the end of September, got delayed. Got canceled, and they are doing like an online event. We'll talk about some of the stuff Nintendo talked about a little bit later. But yeah, I think you're right that it's just going to kind of be the new normal for the next few months as we get used to it. I mean, we saw it with The Last of Us Part 2,
Yep.
like it's just kind of going to happen. But I was like really looking forward to this one, and so it's sad to see it happen to a game that I wanted.
Yeah, I know. Me too. We're going to talk a little bit more Star Wars later in the episode. A couple different points, actually, come to think of it. Um, but yeah, I'm in a like heightened state of like Star Wars fandom now. I feel like I'm far enough away from Rise of Skywalker that like I'm excited. I want to engage in Star Wars stuff. And was really hoping that this was going to scratch that itch, and it might, but not tomorrow.
Yep. Uh, Also, maybe coming out today is the Elder Scrolls Blades. Maybe, possibly.
No one knows for sure. It's either out right now or it's not.
I feel like this is, in the early days of this show, the eShop was super loose. So, like, games would
It's a
say
Wild
they
West,
have a
baby.
release date and then they would never show up or maybe never existed. And so this kind of, makes me nostalgic for the early days of our show when it was the Wild West of the eShop. And, like, maybe this game was released or, like, maybe it won't be for weeks or months. And then on Thursday, May 14th, Oddworld Munch's Odyssey is released. I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with the Oddworld series. I've never played any of the games. I always confuse it with Psychonauts because I feel like they both kind of have grotesque art styles that
Yep.
I've just never like really appreciated or understood.
Yeah, that like maybe French, definitely European aesthetic where it's like, no, it's so cute, it's ugly. And it's like, no, look, not everything is Wallet and Gromit, like Wallace and Gromit. Did I say their names
Wallace.
right? What did I say? um yeah, I'm also not really familiar with the Oddworld series, but this was featured in one of the Nindy showcases. So it's cool that we're seeing some of that stuff come to fruition. Also, I wanted to point out that last week we didn't highlight, but Super Mash came out, and this was another game from the Nindy showcase. And it is what we are basing our topic episode on Thursday. It is the game where you pick like two genres of games and it mashes them up into a single game experience. I actually picked this up today because I was like, oh, I had wanted to play this game. And after spending about 20 minutes with it, I regret my purchase. It does not like it is combining these things, but like not in a way that is it. So it is combining them and then procedurally generating the levels within them. So like any sort of grace around level design is out the window. And obviously some combinations are more fun than others. But even the most fun are passable. And that's not really how I want to spend my time playing games. But Super Mash came out last week. All right, so that's it for the new releases. Let's close out this segment. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, I threatened that we were going to talk more about Star Wars, and here we are. We're doing it. We are going to rank the Disney Star Wars movies. So this is every Star Wars movie that came out after 2005.
Right, not counting the Clone Wars movie.
Not counting the Clone Wars movie, although I don't know where I would put the Clone Wars movie. Probably at the bottom. It's pretty bad. Now, one thing I did want to bring up before we launch into this is, do we want to fold like The Mandalorian as a single piece into this or not?
I think that we should strictly stick to feature length, theatrically released films.
Okay, so the items on the table for ranking are Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Solo, A Star Wars Story, and Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Okay, so any obvious tops or any obvious bottoms for you, Mark?
So I will probably put Rise of Skywalker at the bottom for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that Rise of Skywalker is the only one of these movies that I left the theater being like, what?
Yeah.
And we saw this movie together, and after the movie was over, we didn't really talk about it. Because I think we were flying out the next day, or you were, or we all were. And it was just kind of like, I don't know. So I agree with you 100%. That it is my least favorite of the new Star Wars movies.
And then I would probably go either. Well, I know that you like Rogue One more than I like Rogue One. So, because for me, both of those are probably next, like in whatever order.
Both of what?
Sorry, the Star Wars
The Star
stories.
Wars stories? Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe like I would put Solo next, and then Rogue One above that.
So I will agree with Solo next. And like, but largely I want to say that like the gulf of like the space between how much I like Solo and how much I like Rise of Skywalker is pretty big. Like I I kind of like Solo. I
No,
like Solo.
I liked Solo too. I thought Solo was a lot of fun. Like I felt this way about both the Star Wars stories, where I like left it being like, yeah, that was fine. Like if they made one of these a
Hmm.
year, like I would totally go see them. I like when as soon as it was over, I felt like I liked Solo more than I liked Rogue One. Um
Hmm.
and like I go back and forth on that. I think I was more just being like, well, I think I where you and I are going to end up is that Rogue One is above Solo.
Yeah, and Rogue One, I will agree, is better than Solo. And it took me a little while to like come around to really loving it. I think for me, I put it above. I put it one step higher, but I'm happy to put it here at number 3.
Oh, that's interesting. Only because like I in rewatching Rogue One, I have found it difficult to get through. I feel like the
Mm.
seams really show on like subsequent rewatches.
I feel that way too, but the parts of it that hit for me really hit for me. And I think Rogue One is also really good in the abstract. Like the concept of it, the sound of it, the look of it is all very cool. And like the parts of it that don't work for me are just like, man, when they go back to whatever planet Galen or so is on, like that whole sequence drags on like forever. um and like the payoff there is not that great because like she's already
Oh
oh
no.
no, oh no. uh all right, well, do we not know how?
I
Or do
guess
you want to
I
do you want
think we may know in the future, but we definitely don't know right now.
to brutal. All right, we were accompanied today by the Dopia Big Band. Mark, let's get into the news.
So Nintendo had their financial results call with investors last week, and they were talking about the entire fiscal year, which ended at the end of March.
Hmm.
And anytime that they have these investor calls, we get some interesting tidbits out of it, and this time was no exception. They talked a little bit about how well Animal Crossing is selling, and which by the way, incredibly well, which has
Yeah,
pushed.
we talked about it a little bit last week too. How well Animal Crossing is selling.
Yeah. And so that has helped push the Switch hardware sales to likely being ahead of the lifetime sales of the NES by this point, which is like 62 million units. We know for sure that it has outsold the N64 and the GameCube combined.
Wow, and outsold the Super NES as well.
Yeah. They also mentioned that digital is becoming a bigger part of the first party business, with 70% of digital income coming from full price releases, and then 30% coming from add ons, DLC packs, and digital only games.
I would be interested to know how that stacks up to other publishers. Like, is 30% a lot? They make twice as much money from the sale of like full price games, but I also just wonder if that's a function of like the full price games cost twice as much as the DLC.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean that's a good point. I would be interested to see like the breakout and like you're saying how it compares to like other publishers or other companies. Because also like
Hmm.
Nintendo's monetization strategy is different. Like they don't they have obviously DLC, but they don't have a ton of it for every title, and they don't really do loot boxes that much and like all that kind of stuff, you know.
Right, and they also don't do a lot of the like, small purchase like aesthetic DLC. Like you're not going to be able to buy a costume for 75 cents unless we're talking about a Mii Fighter costume, in which case that's exactly what they're going to do. But even that is on a really small scale compared to like any other game like that. Like any other fighting game is going to drop like huge packs of fighter costumes and like really nickel and dime you for them. And it's just weird that not weird, but it is welcome that Nintendo doesn't normally engage with DLC in that way.
If you've been looking ahead to Nintendo's announced games for 2020, like we talked about on the show, you are probably realizing that the offerings are starting to look pretty thin.
Thinna.
So beyond Clubhouse Games, which is coming out in June, and Xenoblade Chronicles, which comes out at the end of May, and then the DLC that's been announced for Pokemon, the new Smash Fighters, and then new updates that are promised for Animal Crossing. There's not really much on the calendar, or really anything on the calendar besides that.
That's it, yeah.
And Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa shed a little light on that during the Q&A last week, saying, quote, "For our forecast, we have games that are scheduled to release during this period other than what's been announced. However, many workers at Nintendo and our partners are working from home during this time. Considering the working environments between home and office are quite different, it could become increasingly difficult to release our games in line with our current schedule if the situation is prolonged. As things currently stand, we're forecasting as if we'll be able to release our games according to schedule."
So, I mean, it's a little bit of like a no-brainer statement that, Nintendo has things that they haven't told us about. But I think this maybe like puts a little bit of a like I don't think we're gonna see any of the like far-flung things anytime soon. Like Metroid Prime 4, like Bayonetta 3, like there's another one. There's another Breath of the Wild 2. Like those are all like a ways off games. There's something that we don't know about or that we've only heard rumored, like the remasters of Mario 64 and the like. But whatever else Nintendo was going to publish this year, we don't know yet, and they may end up not having them ready for this year.
Right. And so, like we talked about, I think last week, that the rumor is that they're not going to have like a June presentation. And I think that makes sense, right? Like, I know for my work, like a lot of stuff has just been in flux while everybody's trying to figure out, like how all of this works and what can actually be accomplished in that time. And I'm sure Nintendo, especially not if you're not used to working from home, like a lot of that is going on, is being like, okay, what does our new schedule actually look like?
Yeah, and then, there's just like a whole like thing of like, what do you, because like so much business right now is just like, okay, how do we survive until we can come back in the way that we had been operating before? Like that's what that's one track, and then another track is like, okay, how do we best replicate what we normally do in this market? And like people are also kind of like splitting the difference, and like it's very interesting to see where to land on that. And it seems like Nintendo has mostly just gone quiet, and especially because they have something in Animal Crossing that is so successful and so resonant right now that they don't need to put out something new. They've been a part of the mainstream cultural conversation for the last month and a half from putting out one game, and like people are doing talk shows in it and throwing birthday like I think it's only still think we are at the beginning of what it is capable of, both as a game and as a platform for other people doing stuff, especially as like you can't actually go out and meet with your friends. You can do it in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, exactly. We got some other bits of news out of the Q&A session. Nintendo believes the impact on Switch production, like the slowdown due to COVID-19, will probably be over by the summer. They're also trying to ramp production up for Ring Fit Adventure so they can capture demand.
Which is good. I mean, I know that we already had a statement from them through IGN saying that they were aware and they were going to try to meet the demand. Um, but I check on it like every day or every couple days, and they are still selling on the secondhand market for like $280. It is too much.
I also think I don't have the exact number, but when Nintendo releases their financial results, they also update like how many like units sold for titles.
Yeah.
And I think Ring Fit Adventure is either right at the amount that like Fire Emblem Three Houses sold, or has like surpassed it, which tells you
Wow.
like, yeah, like Fire Emblem Three Houses, I think at least in most gaming circles maybe made like a bigger splash, but it's just crazy to see the kind of like response that Ring Fit Adventure has gotten. I would never in a million years would have guessed.
No, and in fact, there is recorded evidence of us guessing to the contrary. That, like, it was not going to be. I remember even when we were talking about the game coming out and being like, "Man, I can't believe this thing's $80. That's a lot." And then I know I made a joke about like, "Well, we'll just wait till it drops in price, like
Totally.
Labo, and then you can pick it up,
Yeah.
in clearance for $30." Not how the narrative played out.
Not how the narrative played out. A little bit more about Animal Crossing success. So the game has sold 13.41 million units over the 6 weeks that it's been released. This is more than Nintendo anticipated it would sell over its lifetime, and it is already the best-selling Animal Crossing game ever, surpassing the sales of Animal Crossing New Leaf on the 3DS.
Which is outrageous, and it puts it among the best-selling Switch titles. Period. Even though, again, it's only been out for like a month and a half. So kudos to Animal Crossing.
They also said that Animal Crossing sales were about 50% downloads from the eShop, which is a significantly high for a Nintendo title. And again, kind of follows with just like the world in that state when the game was released. And even
Totally.
now, it's hard to like go into a store to buy a video game. So it makes sense that a lot of people would purchase it from home. And then Animal Crossing, they reported that Animal Crossing interest spread from 20 and 30-year-olds and women to families and friends, and then spread via social media. So they plan to market second and third titles for those people from existing titles. So hey, if you like Animal Crossing, like check out these other Nintendo Switch titles.
Yeah, so what Nintendo is doing here is they are identifying people who are playing Animal Crossing, testing them for Animal Crossing, and then doing contact tracing out to everyone else in their social circle who has become afflicted with Animal Crossing.
Let the free market do its thing. Nintendo
no.
Switch Online
that's
users
dangerous.
are now over 15 million, and it's benefited from the release of Pokemon and Animal Crossing New Horizons.
My buddy Andrew put a ton of time into Animal Crossing. I think he's probably done with it now. But he has never he doesn't have Nintendo Switch Online. And I keep being like, you can come over to my island. And he's like, I don't have the online. And then the other day, our mutual friend Taylor was like, hey, let's play Mario Kart. And Andrew was like, I don't have Nintendo Switch Online. And every time I'm like, it's $20 for the year. Like, just get it, man. We can play Mario Kart together. You can come visit my island.
It was also reported that Furukawa talked about the Switch life cycle and saying that they believe that they are barely in the middle of the Switch life cycle, being that we're just a little over 3 years since the system was originally released.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, if this is the middle, it's not like a super long life, right? Like normally console life cycles are about 7 years, 6, 7 years. So that's a little bit of like a, yeah, of course, statement. But with the Switch launching when it did, sort of like between generations, and with the Wii U being a shorter life cycle, I guess it's nice to know that they're not abandoning it like they abandoned the Wii U. But like, of course, this thing's making the money. The Wii U did not.
Yeah, to me, it feels like the Switch is like I've loved the Switch, but I feel like it's still like uh I feel like it hasn't even really like hit its total stride. Like I still feel like there's like 1 or 2 more years, and that where it's just going to continue to do like gangbusters. Like it really doesn't even feel
Yeah.
like it's hit its peak yet.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I'm sure we will get like a hardware revision at some point in the next 3 years. Um, to just, we already have really. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason for them to abandon this thing anytime in the near future.
Also, Nintendo's mobile efforts grew by a little over 11% last year. They attributed it to Mario Kart Tour introducing multiplayer and the subscription services that they introduced to Mario Kart Tour, and also the one that they brought to Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Pocket Camp also just had like increase in users thanks to
That's funny.
the New Horizons tide lifting all Animal Crossing boats.
That's funny. Do you think there are people that like just couldn't get their hands on a Switch or whatever, saw their friends playing Animal Crossing and were like, "Well, I can at least do this on my phone, kinda."
Yeah, I wonder, or if it's just like, oh man, like, just how when Pokemon Go was huge when it first debuted, or was getting like tons of press, that it like increased interest in Pokemon in general. It wouldn't surprise me if like
Yeah.
that's just happened with Animal Crossing, where people are enjoying it or they've heard about it, and yeah, they're just seeking it out in whatever form is available to them.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then also they of course say that internally they're looking at what they can do to be more flexible, to adjust for consumers staying at home. So it'll be interesting to see what that means and exactly what form it ends up taking.
It means making more Ring Fit adventures so we can all have one in our homes and exercise during the day.
Nintendo wasn't the only company that was announcing its earnings last week. EA also announced their fiscal year earnings, and during its financial results call, the company mentioned that it has multiple titles coming to Switch this year, which temper our expectations? Question mark. Probably.
Yes.
We know of Burnout Paradise, and presumably another FIFA will be coming in some form. And technically, that's multiple titles. So
Didn't they also put a number on this though? Like a surprisingly high number, but then didn't detail what the games were exactly. I
did
might be
they?
wrong on that.
I don't know. I know that they mentioned something when I first like heard this story in the periphery of the internet. I think there was some mention of like 5 or 6, but my understanding is that like when you drill down into it, they talk about like 5 or 6 other unannounced titles, but not necessarily ones that were like coming specifically to the Switch.
Got it. I'm looking at a Eurogamer headline that reads, EA will launch 14 games this year with multiple for Switch. So that's probably where I was getting the idea that there was a number attached to it. There's also some like rumor and speculation about a Mass Effect remaster that is in the works. Feasibly, that could function on Switch, right? So like I wonder if that is could be one of those games.
Yeah, I mean, no reason it couldn't. Also, EA, I'm telling you, a Dead Space collection.
Oh, yeah, with Dead Space Extraction in there.
Yes, exactly.
The Wii light gun game. I mean, also though, that's obviously a very good idea. But The Sims, what are you doing? Put The Sims on Switch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's such a good point. That seems like so obvious.
It's stupid that it's not there.
Even just port like one of the mobile ones that we've seen like other companies do.
Yeah,
Crazy.
It'll be fine.
Former Retro Studios artist Sammy Hall shared some concept art from canceled projects on his ArtStation account. It's like this like chic spin-off looking game, presumably, that takes place in like a Zelda universe somewhere. Very, very, I would say, like what at least a portion of the fan base really wants, which is like a hyper realistic, like Darksiders type Zelda concept. And then the other one was like almost the exact opposite of that, which was like a Mario spinoff featuring Boo or a Boo.
Hmm.
And you get like some of the art had like Boo and like a graduation cap and like all this different stuff.
Super cute.
It looked
Yeah.
very cute. Um,
And that game was spec'd for a lower resolution screen, so it was likely that that was going to be a DS or 3DS game. I guess
uh,
DS considering the time.
Yeah, so like Hall suspects that really like Nintendo of Japan probably never saw pitches associated with any of these concepts. Says that it was like one of those things where, you are put in a room or with a team and you're like, "Hey, come up with some like ideas that
Yeah.
that we're just like kind of messing around with." He specifically said that the ideas for both games came from former retro leads Mark Pacini, Todd Keller, and Keenan Pearson, and that when they left to form studios of their own, both games were basically like canned.
So it's really just like a glimpse into, what could have been, cooking at Retro Studios at some point, and is like a cool little, like reminder that they have, that they do this with Nintendo properties, right? That they like take them and like tweak them and evolve them. Like we saw them do it with Metroid Prime, and we saw them do that with Donkey Kong Country, Returns, and Tropical Freeze. And like it's cool. I like that there is an arm of Nintendo, or rather a company owned by Nintendo, that is doing that kind of thing. And makes me wonder
Totally.
what they've been working on since Tropical Freeze came out.
Yeah, exactly. It also is just like a good reminder that just because you see concept art that
Yeah.
existed, it doesn't mean that the game was anywhere near being in development, or that it wasn't more than just somebody's idea that they were able to work on for a little bit.
It also goes to show you that good ideas are cheap. That you can generate the best idea, and not executing on it means the idea didn't exist.
Yep. Last week we mentioned that Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga revealed key art for the game in conjunction with May the
Third
4th.
Star Wars mention this episode.
Yeah, that's right. And Patrick, May the 13th be with you. Getting that in before tomorrow. There weren't any new details about the release at that time, but we have since gotten a release date, we think. Hasn't been confirmed by TT Games or Warner Brothers Games, but I think on StarWars.com they mentioned that the game is coming to Switch, PS4, and Xbox One on October 20th. So still, this is a game that has been a long time in development.
Yeah, totally. And this is of course, with the same caveats as everything else, everything can be delayed.
Yeah. Hey, NetherRealm Studios announced a major expansion for Mortal Kombat 11 that launches May 26th, and it's called Aftermath.
Aftermath.
The press release touts it as a all-new cinematic narrative centered around trust and deceit. For whatever reason, that tickled me endlessly.
So it's a new like add-on to the story mode that features a lot of the DLC characters that have been added through just the game's regular DLC releases. But then there are also new playable characters being introduced here, and I think this is the full lineup of them. We're getting Fujin, Shiva, who's like the female Goro, and RoboCop. Because why not? Like, if something was cool and gritty in the 80s and 90s, you bet your bottom dollar it's coming to Mortal Kombat at some point.
I like that RoboCop is voiced by Peter Weller, who was the original RoboCop.
Yes.
I also like that, when I'm thinking about an all-new cinematic narrative centered around trust and deceit, I am, of course, thinking about RoboCop.
Always thinking about RoboCop.
And it does seem like it's going to be a pretty big addition because it will run you $40.
Which is a lot, but the base game right now is on the Switch eShop, I believe 60% off or something. It's cheap. It's like $20, $23, $25. So getting this new chunk of DLC should bring it back up to like the price of a full price game. and they've been supporting that thing a lot, so there's a lot of content there. Although I know the Switch version got knocked for like decreased graphical fidelity in like the crypt mode and a few other places. So I if I were picking up Mortal Kombat 11 now because I'm excited about RoboCop, and that might be a sentence that is running through my head, I'd probably do it on PlayStation 4.
Also, you might have thought we were done talking about Animal Crossing New Horizons, but oh no, no, no.
Well, okay, so this is just something that happened on Twitter that I thought was charming, and I wanted to highlight. Rob Hyret, who is someone who works at Nintendo, who worked on localization for Animal Crossing, was tweeting a little bit about the jokes in the game, and just about like the process. So I'm going to read some of these tweets here. During the localization of Animal Crossing New Horizons, we joked repeatedly that we were building the next 5 to 10 years worth of memes. We knew the game would be big, but we obviously couldn't have imagined the real-world circumstances of its release. We've never had a time like this where the safety and responsibility of one another kept us physically distant, and digital tools have taken the place of face-to-face contact. But Zoom and Twitter and other platforms are, by design, rather plain. Animal Crossing is different. The Animal Crossing aesthetic is cute. I've seen people here on Twitter observing that even the tarantulas are cute. Even the chairs are cute. But it's even more than the cuteness. It's comfort. It's positivity. It's a retreat. If you've played the game, you're tired of the sea bass joke. I get it. I'm tired of the sea bass joke, and I wrote it. But here's a secret about the sea bass joke. It was originally, quote, I caught a sea bass. Well, maybe a C minus bass. And when we were workshopping the fish joke, someone pointed out that as a joke that people were going to see many, many times, generally along with the disappointment that they didn't catch something better, maybe it would be better to spin it into a positive. Make that a C plus instead. From a comedy mechanics perspective, it's the same joke, relying on the homophone C and C to change how you perceive them in the description of the animal. And let's be honest, it would work better as a verbal joke than it does in print, but that fish has sailed. Anyway, my point is we were doing our very best down to the details you may not have considered to make this the most positive, comforting, funny game we could. And I know the dev team was right there doing the same. So it's been humbling to see this thing we worked on become so important to people, in part because of the weird accident of history released around this scary time. So I just wanted to highlight that, like, that joke, which does feel clumsy when you read it, more like a C plus bass, that there is like a positivity and a good nature behind it that is meticulously workshopped so that you won't get beaten down by like a snarky sense of humor.
Yeah, and I really think like I loved reading that because it's just like, yeah, that sense of like optimism and like fun absolutely like permeates the whole game. Like you can tell that it was deliberately created to do
Mm-hmm.
that, and that it happened to release when it released is just like kind of incredible.
Yeah.
This already happened, but I thought it was so weird that I wanted to talk about it. Last week, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate hosted a Spirit Board event that featured characters with thick eyebrows. That was the theme.
They host these like all the time. There's like a new Spirit Board event, maybe not weekly, but a couple a month. And they're usually united by something that is, these characters are from the same game, or they're muscular, or, they're into guns or whatever. This one is they have thick eyebrows, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, whoever's job it is to do these, like you're right, week after week. That is a lot of times to come up with like themes for spirits. Like you have a lot of spirits, but you only have so many to choose from.
Yes. And some of them have big eyebrows.
Yeah, I love seeing Nintendo call out people's specific fetishes. Finally, Nintendo has announced that the 13th Maximus Cup will take place in Tetris 99 this weekend. I feel like we had a little bit of a Tetris 99 drought, but it's nice to see that they're happening with more regularity, at least recently. As part of the event, players can earn an in-game Animal Crossing New Horizons theme, which is always exciting because I love finding out what like the music
Yes.
for it is going to be. Like all the Maximus Cups before it, all you have to do is earn 100 points while it's active to get the Animal Crossing theme. The Maximus Cup will kick off on May 15th, starting at midnight Pacific time, and goes all the way through May 18th at midnight Pacific time.
Yeah, they let these things run for a nice long weekend. And it's cool that we just came off the Ring Fit Adventure one maybe a week or two ago, and that we're getting the Animal Crossing one now. And maybe that's just a function of they were like, Animal Crossing is too big to ignore. All these people have Nintendo Switch Online. Let's lure them into something else. Maybe this is exactly what we were talking about in the example of like trying to move Animal Crossing players onto other pieces of Nintendo software. This is a perfect example, especially because Tetris is so accessible. If it also looks and sounds like Animal Crossing, holy cow.
Yeah, 100%. Let's be each other's best friends and remind each other to do this, because sometimes it slips my mind.
You got it. We will. Hey, Mark, let's be best friends. All right, let's close out the news. And that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. I was going to say that does it for this episode of Animal Crossing New Horizons, because we talk about it so much. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it anywhere you share stuff. We prefer Facebook and Twitter, but any of the places that you share stuff is good. On Twitter, I'm Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. The Facebook page is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Hey, it's Mia.
Hey, it's Allie.
And we host the Rom-Com Review podcast, P.S. I Love Rom-Coms.
Each week, we'll have incredible guests come and discuss a new rom-com, grand gestures, meet-cutes, and of course, that elusive chemistry. Mia, what are you doing holding that giant boombox over your head?
I'm hoping to win over listeners with this grand gesture. Take us back!
Find a new episode every week.
And subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by Campfire Media. Wow, you're still holding that boombox.
Yeah, I've got great upper body strength. Thanks, CrossFit.
Yes, I love rom-coms.
Campfire.